Hi everyone, your friendly neighborhood elf. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the books that I've read and loved in 2023. If you're looking for books to read in 2024, stay tuned. I've not read enough books in 2023 to make a separate video for romances and other genres, so we're going to get a mix of things in this video. And the first book I want to mention is 𝕊𝕍𝕻𝕻𝕻 by Taylor Adams. I've been raving about this book for a bit now. I don't read a lot of thrillers and mysteries, so this one really blew my mind. I do watch a lot of thrillers and I do watch a lot of mystery TV shows, specifically Scandinavian, Norwegian, and Swedish shows, and UK mystery series. So there could be some discount that I've given this book due to my inexperience in the genre, but I actually have not seen many people not loving this book. It was actually one of those books that I picked up because I was influenced by other people. I genuinely think that it's really good. So 𝕊𝕍𝕻𝕻𝕻 follows a young woman named Darby. She is in uni and she's been distant with her family, specifically with her mother. They don't have the most warm relationship, but she hears from her sister that their mom is in the hospital and that it's very serious, maybe even terminal. So she decides to come back home to Utah during winter time and gets into a snowstorm, which forces her to spend a lot of time at a rest stop with a bunch of strangers. The phones barely work, so she goes to the parking lot to send a message to the emergency services so they would be extracted. She hears a very weird noise and approaches someone else's van to see a young child in a cage, clearly kidnapped. She doesn't really know anyone on the rest stop. She doesn't know who the car belongs to, and she is on her own trying to figure out who is the perpetrator of the crime and what can she do about it. So it's an isolation thriller with a lot of moving parts and plenty of very shady characters. Every single thing was done right in this thriller. I love the villain. They were a fully fleshed out character, not a mustache twirling excuse for a villain. And I love the protagonist because she was smart and cunning, and she was focused and goal-oriented. I understand that in those kinds of situations, most people would crumble. It's understandable for human psychology, but it's never a fun time reading from a point of view or watching from a point of view of a character that isn't smart enough to actually fight back the villain. I rooted for that child and for Darby to prevail. This book was brilliantly crafted and it's one of my absolute favorite thrillers of all time. Granted, I have not read many. Jade War by Fonda Lee is also making it to the list. One of my most favorite fantasy series. I just really love family sagas. I think they bring so much to the table, so many characters, so many relationship dynamics, so much complexity and tension. And I think family sagas pair especially well with a large fantasy series, and especially fantasy series about organized crime. Hence the brilliance that is Godfather, and this book somewhat is inspired by that, I believe. The politics of this world is very interesting, the world building is incredible, the magic system is so on point, but my favorite part are the characters and how they develop and the relationship they develop with each other. I personally am a big Aiden and Shai fan. I don't really like 𝕊𝕊𝕀𝕸. A lot of people really love 𝕊𝕊𝕀. I believe he is the favorite in the fandom. I just don't love him because he reminds me of someone in my personal life. But Aiden's and Shai's character arc are so satisfying to me so far. I just love how they call to each other in the books. Aiden is younger, Shai is older, they are relatives, and it's interesting how Aiden sort of follows in Shai's footsteps. He repeats similar cycles, and I would be interested to see in the third book if he's going to repeat her trajectory after all or not. It's a stunning sequel, and I don't know why it took me so much time to finally pick it up. I am genuinely slow with fantasy. So if you are stuck in the same predicament, if you read the first book and you need a nudge to finally read the second one, here's your nudge. The next book you've seen me hype up before is Marvellous by Freya Marske. This book was just such a comfort read for me. It was everything that I love. It was a low-key fantasy, very adventurous, very character-focused and relationship-focused. I would actually call it romantasy, but it's not a romantasy that suffers from bad world building or puts everything else to the background. Every single thing is well developed in the story, and the romance is great as well. I also am reading the second book right now, and it's just as good. I've heard people saying that it's not just as good, but I don't agree. I think the first book was a bit more serious. The second one actually is more fun in that it is a mystery that happens on a ship, so it's an isolated place. So in the moment, I'm pretty sure that the series is going to be one of my favorites. It combines things that I like. It is a historical fantasy. I'm a big lover of fantasy of manners, historical fantasy, and it is also about a secret magical society. The magic is easily understood. There's no grand world building that would need many books to explain. It's very approachable, and I also love the adventurous element of it. I love a case fic personally, and one of my favorite genres in TV as well is actually historical mysteries. I love a period drama with some mystery thrown in. And if they add a few crumbles of romance as well, I'm sold. So this book is genuinely just something that I had a high chance of liking, and I really loved it. The first book is about a young baronet named Robin who is down his luck. His parents just died, and they left little to no money to him and to his sister, so he has to go to work. So he has to take a job from one of his enemies. He doesn't really know what the job entails, but it turns out to be a job of a magical liaison. He has to report possible magical occurrences, so the magical society would deal with them. The magical society lives in secret, and he actually didn't know that they exist. His first day, he gets attacked by a person without a face. The magic is covering this person's face because they believe that he knows what happened to his predecessor, who apparently had stolen something. Robin not only is assaulted and shocked by the existence of magic, he also is cursed. That day as well, he meets his contact from the magical society named Edwin, and Edwin decides that he's going to help Robin with the curse, and also they together will try to figure out what happened to the previous guy and what he'd stolen. So they go on this big adventure. It's a very fish out of the water type of story because Robin doesn't know anything about magic. So the reader from his eyes is experiencing the magical society for the first time, and I just love it. I don't care if you think it's old and tacky and has been done. I don't care. I just love these kinds of stories. They develop feelings for each other while they are at it. Edwin is my boo. I love him. I just want to protect him and all the other things. I love this novel, and I need more people to read it. I'm reading the second one, as I've told you, and I'm just as big of a fan of it as well. In 2023, I also finally read the entirety of the Green Creek series by TJ Klune. It's been on my TBR for ages now. The book that I loved the most out of the four, and I think is the best out of the four, it's a very important thing to note, is Wolfsong by TJ Klune, obviously. And it might sound bad that I love the first book the most because why read the sequels then? But I just think that there is a formula to these books and there are a lot of similarities in the backstories of characters throughout the series. So the first one feels the freshest because it's the first time we hear that type of story. The story of abandonment, the story of the one that got away, the story of building your inner power and finding a group of people that accept you and love you. Each book in the series has those elements, so it becomes a little bit too similar by the end of the series, but I still really loved the series overall. I still think that it's a series that is worth your energy and time. The 𝕊𝕊𝕀𝔸𝕃 series is 4 books that follow the life of a werewolf pack and their adventures. Each book is dedicated to a different couple, and the first book is an introduction to the series overall. It does a lot of world building and explanation, and I actually really love the world building of the series. The couple whose story we get in Wolfsong is 𝕊𝔻𝔻𝕀𝔸𝕃 and Joe. 𝕊𝔻𝔻𝔻 was abandoned as a child by his father and lived with his mom. He still holds a lot of negative and toxic opinions of himself because his father left. He has to grow up very quickly to support himself and his mom, and he works at the 𝕊𝕻𝔻𝕀𝔸𝕃 shop as a teenager and finds his first found family there. He also meets a family that moves into the neighboring house and their youngest son named Joe. Joe is a bit younger than him as well, and Joe immediately clings to him. He wants to spend all his time with him. He's obsessed with him. He wants to be his best friend. In this book, we see them grow up and become adults. We see the development of their relationship and the development of the relationship between 𝕊𝕻𝕻𝕻 and Joe's family. And we're also introduced to the concept of werewolves because Joe and his family are a pack of werewolves. There's definitely something special about this series. It's brutal in places, but it does feel very cozy still. The relationship dynamics that are built throughout the series are just so incredibly swoony. I definitely got attached to most of the characters, and I'm glad that I finally read the series. Of course, I have to mention mistakes were made by Meryl Wilsner, although I've given it 4.5 stars because I'm still not about those age gap relationships. I was surprised how much I love this book. I was genuinely a big fan of it and still am, and highly recommend it to everyone that is looking for unconventional sapphic romances that do pack a lot of heat. I just love that Meryl Wilsner had the audacity to write it and sell it to a traditional publisher. The romance follows a uni student and who occasionally goes out to a bar to hook up with some ladies. And one day she meets a woman that is slightly older than she usually goes for and is immediately charmed by her. Her name is Erin. They have an undeniable chemistry and they consummate it in unconventional places. Both Cassie and Erin think it's a one-time kind of deal, but next day they meet on a parent-student event and it turns out that Erin is actually the mom of Casey's best friend on campus. And even though they would like to deny the chemistry and forget what happened that night, they struggle with it and eventually they stop fighting. The whole dynamic becomes even more complicated when they figure out that they actually like each other, that they are very compatible. And they are at crossroads essentially. They don't know if coming out with this relationship is going to be worth it or not. The story is funny, it's sexy, it's fun. The relationship dynamic is actually very nuanced. It's a fun prompt that is written seriously, and that's what I liked about this book overall. They do actually talk about their age gap and how it would affect their relationship in the future and how they both feel about it, and they address their insecurities when it comes to this kind of dynamic, which is not something that I see often in age gap romances. That's why I don't like them. It's a really good romance and I loved it. The last book that I'm going to mention in this video is also a romance. It's We Could Be So Good by Sebastian. If you've been subbed to my channel for a while, you know that I love Sebastian, and her making it into my favorite lists is kind of a given. It's an romance set in 1950s in New York, which is definitely something new for her, and I really enjoyed her take on it. I think I found it extra satisfying because I read most of her other work, and I know how she writes Regency romances, and I understand now the difference and why the difference was made. The story is about Nick and Andy. They are both rival correspondents in the newspaper. Nick is a self-made man. He is Italian-American, comes from a very traditional family, and has been working in the industry for a while. And Andy is the heir of this newspaper. His father is the editor and the owner of the newspaper, so he's expected to step into his footsteps eventually when his father decides that he can no longer do it. And Andy isn't really happy about it. They shouldn't work on paper as friends, but they become the best friends, and they find each other very charming in their differences. The thought of this book is just slice of life type episodes that follow these characters and how they become friends and eventually more, which was such an interesting technique of actually making the reader invest in this relationship. Sebastian was always good at writing this casual couple moments that genuinely make you feel attached to them as people and as a union. And she, in my opinion, just upgraded that skill in this novel. Once again, Sebastian introduces so much meaning and nuance and detail to this romance. She spends so much time working on background relationships. I just really love this. It is a very successful romance, and I'm interested to see which settings she's going to explore next. And these are all the books that I loved in 2023. In the comments down below, tell me about the books that you loved in 2023 and that you recommend to add to my TBR in 2024. If you reached this part of the video, leave an emoji of a snowflake in the comment section. And on this note, I will go do some elf shit. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon with another video, but until then,